Hey guys, welcome to another live play and explain video. This time trying out the headset to maybe improve the audio quality of the video. The 500 Zoom was running like 5 minutes ago. I was optimistic that maybe we could get some hands in, but unfortunately pool is already dead. Jack 10, kind of too big to open. With a Recreational in the big blind, it gets closer. Of course the button also has a reachable stack, so maybe just folding is the better option. King Queen off will be a 3-bet. And nothing we can do versus the 4-bet. Interesting that he chooses the bigger sizing. Oh, misclicked here, wanted to make it 2.5. So tens is mainly 4-betting in those positions. You could sometimes call, but the hand is strong enough to get it in. And you really want to avoid playing out of position. So I think it's a pretty common league for a lot of players to, at lower stakes, to call too much with pocket pairs. So also if you have like 9s or 8s, you can 4-bet and then 4-bet fold with 8s if you jams, for example. That's a fine strategy. Not many playable hands so far. Possibly a Recreational player who snap called the small blind here. Ace-3 is close, but I think we can open raise. Most people under 3-bet in the big blind, so opening a tad bit wider is usually fine. 10-7-3 is a board where I would play a big bet or check strategy, and I think Ace-3 can really go either way. When I bet big, he's still going to call hands like Ace-check off, every 3, and all of his draws, of course. So I think on a higher roll I will go for the c-bet. Can't really go wrong there. Ace-Queen off is strong enough to go for the cold 4-bet. Interesting. I mean, he does hit sets that we don't have. He will 3-bet 8-7-6s and then probably always call versus the min 4-bet. So I would assume that this board is pretty horrendous for us. Of course, he still has a lot of high cards that also don't hit this board too great. But I think we will go for a check back with range here quite a lot, and with this hand on a 26, I will go for the check back. Not really sure what the overall c-bet frequency here would be, but I can't imagine that it's anywhere range bettable. Pretty surprised to see a check. Like, I don't really think he should check here. I think he gets to bet everything now once we check back. Just like every pocket pair is worth a small bet to deny equity and get value from high cards. But I think now I'm just trying to show down my ace-queen. If I had a heart, maybe I could think about stabbing the turn, but I think ace-queen, no heart, just tries to check down. Now what hands could he have that makes sense? He could have hands like, could maybe have the same hand, which would honestly make the most sense. Maybe sometimes win versus ace check. Maybe he called a hand like, I don't know, it's 8 suited, pocket checks. That's a very, very strangely played hand. 7th is going to mix 3-bet fold, I think. Yeah, I really have no idea what the checks guy was thinking about there. But it's quite nice when we at least get to see 5 cards. Tenants who did majority call will sometimes 3-bet. The smaller he opens, the more we are inclined to call. And with the recreational overcalling, I think I prefer to go for the call as well. And then 3-bet stronger hands and like weaker offsuit blocker hands, like king queen off or something like that. King check off also possible. Pure call on table 2, the pocket 5s. And if he bets on the 10, the pocket pairs are just the first hands that start folding. So pretty interesting. The reg snap checking back and the recreational going for a small probe. There's some merit in raising, but I think overall probably like, let's say he probes and like 8-6, that those sort of hands we get value from, which we have pretty much dead. I also don't really think I get him to fold an ace by raising. Now he goes for the very fast check. Usually recreational players don't find enough block bets when they have like 2 pair or maybe even sets, they just check. So in those cases, I like to overbet because they just have a range that consists of too many bluff catchers. Like, let's say in theory, his range when he checks the river should be like hands that are too big to value bet, like 1 pair sort of hands, and then a lot of give ups, of course, and some traps. And when his range doesn't consist any traps and more bluff catchers than he should, then I'm just way more incentivized to overbet versus that range. Could have opened the Jack 10 again, I guess. You always want to think about like weigh your options, like the 10-9 on the turn. Does it make sense to raise? What happens if I raise? Does he fold better hands? Does he call worse? Not just like autopilot snap call. Playing versus likely a recreational player. Generally speaking, those 4 deuce exploits are not great, but when it's paired, I think it's actually getting better, I would assume. And also we play versus a recreational that has a very wide range, so I think it makes more sense to bet. We do face the check raise, which is annoying, of course. I think we probably have to call versus his sizing with most of our suited hands. The main folds would be hands like king 10 off, queen check off, and those are offsuit combos, so they make up for a lot of combos already. And yeah, pretty bad turn, nothing we can do here. There's also a pretty decent chance that the recreational on the turn will be very honest with his hand strength. like always check. Let's say the turn is a king and he has pocket sixes. He might check raise too much on the flop and then start to play very honest on the turn and then always check fold when you bet twice and fast play his strong hands. So I think there's quite a lot of value to be gained by flatting the iron position. By calling the check raising position. Versus the 3x king 8 is too weak of a hand. Unfortunate to get 3-bet with the king 5, also too weak to do anything about it really. Queen check I would open versus the weaker players in the blinds if this guy folds. Seven 4 also too weak to defend, unfortunately. We do get the walk with the ace deuce, we take it. Ten 5 suited is close in the small blind if it folds to us. Wouldn't mind getting some action with the ace queen suited. And we get the board where I play an overbet or check strategy. Like you can do lots of things, you could also just range bet for a small sizing. I think our hand probably mainly goes for the check back. I think ace queen with a spade would be more inclined to bet. Table 1 we roll an aggressive number, so we go for the 3-bet. His probe sizing here should definitely be an overbet and be like, let's say king 9 plus, king check plus. He goes 2x pot, which is a fine sizing. Like I personally don't love to size up too much when there's double flush draw, because at some point I just get to call a lot of high equity draws, which is not great for his value region, of course. But I think 2x is probably still fine. I have a very easy call. And always nice when you hit the nuts on the river. So I don't think he should overbet on this river. I mean, he could, like queen check gets the perhaps a small overbet sizing, but I don't think he should like go huge, like jamming or something should not be a thing. When he checks, it's also interesting. What hands do I want to reopen on the river? There's really not a lot of them. So, I mean, I think that he's probably going to fold almost always. But I still like jam. I think jamming is the main sizing that you use here in position, actually. Like, I'm not going to value bet ace king on the river, so of course I have some sets. Maybe, like, I'm not even sure. Do you value bet king 10? Maybe. So you will have a 75% sizing also, but I think the main sizing will probably be all in here. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Like, it also depends, my sizing depends on his strategy, and when he... I'm just not really sure how his check range on the river looks like. King queen suited, mainly a check on this sort of board. Like, let's say he has king check on the river, he should, I think, still go for a block bet. And then Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I will look the spot up. I think jamming is fine, but perhaps I'm wrong here. Queen 9 suited in those positions, just fold. And king queen, I think, is strong enough to check down. Not really happy, losing a lot of course, but I think this would be an overbluff. And this time we win, so that's great. So queen 7 in clubs, which I think actually should bluff. Like blind, you do have to be careful not to overdo it, but when he has clubs, I don't really have the 7 in clubs that will fold on the river. I will rarely have the 7 in clubs and fold on the river. Like all my flush draws, or most of my flush draws are going to bet turn, and if I don't bet them, I would also bluff river because they tend to have good blockers. I'm blocking the folds. So when he arrives with queen 7 in clubs, also the 7 is like a good card here, I think, because if I had a 7, I would have bet on an earlier street quite often. So I think his hand probably should have been a bluff. Ace-4 we went for the free bet, which is a frequency play, and we get a sort of board where we will have a check-back frequency, let's say probably roughly 45% or something. And this hand will also check more often than not, I would assume. King, of course, a great turn for us. A small bet doesn't really make much sense. Thinking whether it makes any sense to raise this hand, I think probably not. Hands that he might do this with are like 6-5, 7-8-7, those sort of hands. It's not really great if we raise, so I think we just call. Not sure if this is a regular or recreational. I think this was the guy who snap called the small blind earlier, so probably more likely that it's a recreational. He does check to us on the river. And yeah, I think I just go for the check back. Like our check back EV is quite high. If we know more about the guy, maybe you could start doing some crazy things here to bluff. But for the bluff to outperform the check back, we have to have some information about him that he has to fold quite a lot of better hands. But you still always want to think about it, like don't make snap decisions, try to calculate which option is higher EV. Of course you won't be able to do it perfectly, but to just have somewhat of an accurate assumption. Fives, if you play flats you can call, when you play free bet only you have to fold. And at the high rake structure, when there's no recreational in the blinds, I think I just like free bet folding more. And sevens, we should mainly win and always check back, of course. Is it off without the diamond? I think it's just a fold, but we take it. Now, table 1 is a board where, you would prefer to bet bigger, but for now I'm just playing the 25% or check. On a low roll we will go for a check. And I think this is one of those boards where we will use quite a massive check raise because it is rainbow. And Ace 9 plus is just very strong here and will remain strong in a lot of runouts. So I think you want to go for a really big check raise sizing here. Like similar to how you would prefer a really big c-bet sizing, I think you also prefer a big check raise sizing here. Let's say it was 9-8-3 two-tone, then you would want to size down because he just has a lot of flush draws, which have a lot of equity versus my overpairs, so I don't really want to build too big of a pot just yet when there are turns that will... There are a lot of turns that will increase my equity. I think 6-7 is quite a nice hand to start blasting here. And on a high roll we will certainly go for it. So this guy overcalled the 3-bet. I've already noticed he calls hands like queen check off. So that makes the board much less than it looks at first glance. I think I'm gonna go for a check raise. If this guy also steps too much, that's quite a profitable play. will go for the overbet. I mean, you can go either way. Table 1 and table 2, I think I'll start potting. The 10 does complete a lot of draws. I still have hands like 9-7, 9-6, yeah. It's still easy to find enough bluffs, and having a club is also not great that don't block any straight. I think this has to give up. And he does call the turn. I think I go for the jam, but not sure how great it is. This is like less of a theory play and more of a expert play versus the Recreational, of course, who I just hope that he folds more often than not when I jam and I make money. That's basically my thought process. And when he is not too tight, like let's say this is a guy that only overcalls jacks plus ace queen suited, then I think this play could very quickly go pretty wrong. But when he overcalls offsuit hands, then yeah, I think I should have a lot of fold equity going bet. Queen sign 4 suited, not really a range bet board. Like he has all the lower, the 7 and 4 just connect pretty much with his 6-5, 6-8 suited that he has in the big blind that I don't open from this position. And on a low roll I will go for the check back. Can of course again go either way. I think my delay sizing on a turn would be a small one, as I would be incentivized to bet hands like 8s, 9s. So ace king always goes check now, I think. Not really much that is gained by betting the turn, he just folds ace jack, ace 10 sort of hands that we have beat. And on the river we also go for the check back and should win quite a lot, I think. Nice. Sixes versus the big free bet, I think I will just pure fold. Like if you free bet a smaller sizing, you would also fold a lot and mix some calls, but I think it's the bigger sizing. It's fine to just always fold here. Not too many close spots so far. I mean, some interesting spots for sure, but 10-5 suited, I will sometimes free bet and we try to create some action in the video, so let's go for it. King 7, I would have opened versus the Recreational player. For the guys who are not used to free betting those sort of hands, maybe playing a little bit lower stakes, like in the big blind you have a polarized free bet range because you also have a very attractive call, so that's kind of why you split your free bet range into your stronger hands and then some weaker hands, so it's a more polarized range. And you would not want to free bet hands like 10-6, 10-7 suited, which are kind of hands that are pretty strong and would suck if you get 4-bet on. So that's kind of why you would take a hand like 10-5 suited, which if you get 4-bet, it's not terrible to fold. Or hands like ace-4 off, which is always nice when you get a fold with those sort of hands, and if you get 4-bet, it's not the end of the world, while having 3-bet folding hands like Jack-8 suited, Queen-8 suited, those sort of hands would not be great 3-bets. Table 1, a texture where we can have some bets on. Like usually if you watch my videos, you will often see me just range checking mainly out of position. But I think this is one of the boards where we can have a c-bet strategy on. On a low roll, I will go for the check though. Like once you have a c-bet, once you have a checking range, every hand needs to get in there a bit. And what I do like on the turn is, especially when I think that the player maybe has a weaker flatting range that consists mainly of pocket pairs, I like to do depolarize on the triple proto textures. We can go either way, roll kind of high, so go for the 4-bet. So I like blocking. On the river now we can't value bet our hand anymore, so I think we will either go check call or check fold. Like if my read on the guy is that he has too many 6s, 5s, 4s, 8s in range, and he now bluffs all of them, or like bluffs them at a high frequency, then it is a nice hand to call. So I think I will go for the call. But yeah, sometimes you lose. But I think the upside of calling here is pretty high and the downside is kind of marginal. Like the downside would be if we would start like value betting king queen or something, then then I would really get abused. But and the potential upside is that he might be having too many pocket pairs pre-flop already, then he always calls it on the turn with the flush draw, and then there's a chance that he just massively overbluffs the river. So I think when you like weigh your options, 6-5 on a high roll will go for a step. When you weigh your options, there's a very positive outcome, and then a bit of a not really a terrible outcome ever. Like it's tough to not find any bluffs here, I would say. And there's also a chance that he doesn't value bet this for, like let's say he doesn't even value bet the weaker ace-X or one pair sort of hands, then the bluff catch can become printing quite fast. And again, how I should construct my checking range on the river, I will have a lot of blocks on the river again. Like when I block the turn, I value bet as weak as check 10. And on the river, I think if I have a hand like maybe king queen plus or every ace plus can go for another block, I think. So when I check, I have give ups. Then my weak bluff catcher that will consist of queen x and 10x, maybe some revert 9x as well. And then I also need to have some traps. That's how you should construct your range mostly. A bad way to construct a range would be to always check ace king on the river, to always bet your flushes and strong hands and 2-pair and sets, and then try to check call with your stronger 1-pair hands. Like that would be a very bad way to construct your checking range on the river. Table 2, on those mono boards, you mainly check out of position. You could throw in some bets, but for the most part you will check. Also, and 2 high cards are blocked already, it's not great for us, because he has more hands like 6 free suited, 4 free suited that we don't open. Does bet small. You don't check raise much on the mono boards. When you check like more than equilibrium, I think you probably still need to have some check raises, but mostly go and check call. Yeah, absolutely snap checks back on the turn. So I think I want to go like huge. Could go for another check to check raise, so it's an option. When he absolutely snap checks, I think it's quite likely to check again, and I'm not sure, like, of course he could have a 10 that would value bet, but I think he's more likely to just have a pretty weak holding that wants to go to showdown cheap. And like, I don't think this is a theoretically approved sizing, but like when he snap checks, he never has a flush, so you have to start implementing those sizings. You could go even bigger, like you could maybe just jam on the river. So it's kind of your job to exploit your opponent's mistake here. Till one, we will go for the range bet. King high boards are just great for us. And yeah, there's some turns I will bluff the 8s, but mostly check folding. On the flush turn, we have to slow down quite a bit. So I'd say the overall checking frequency is probably like 75+% here. And then our hand just always checks, and I think we just have a pure check fold. Like when we check so much, our range is quite strong and protected, so this is one of our weaker hands. Table 2, with such weak flush draw, I think I prefer to go for the more passive line. Go for the check call. And I also don't think we can bluff this hand. We have a lot of hands, like we have infinite bluff candidates, so you have to be really careful here to not overdo it. And we will just check and likely check fold. I'm thinking about, like, let's say that the 8 in spade is also not great. Let's say I had a hand like ace 8 in spades, which he called and did not step on the turn. It's a hand that he would now bluff, so I don't really see my hand check calling. So yeah, I think I prefer to just fold. Pocket 6 is again facing quite a large sizing. I will mainly go for the fold. We are going on for quite some time now, so I think we will play some more hands and then call it a session. There's also always the small possibility that you call 8s and actually he bluffs with a better hand. But yeah, I think pretty straightforward. And on a turn, you will have to check infinite. I think the main slow blows on the river are probably when we have 2 hearts in our hand. Like let's say we had ace in hearts, queen, and we check the turn. I mean, those sort of hands will mainly bet, to be fair, but they can check and go for a check raise. Not the high frequency play, but it is fine. And like those sort of hands, ace queen with 1 heart would look to fast play, and then when you have 2 hearts, you block the calling range, so you are more inclined to go for a check. We face 2 checks now, so we certainly could start to step with our 7s. Could also go for a check back though. Lower roll, I will go for the check back. This hand wants to get like exactly 1 street, so it's kind of awkward if you bet like turn small and then didn't really get enough with our hand. Always snapping the river, of course. Then I think pocket kings would also be a nice hand to trap on a river, because he would always check back a king. Okay, so let's see. Waiting for other players. Perhaps it throws or something like that. Anyway guys, video's going on for quite some time now, so thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Bye.